NC State's got a tough matchup in the Sweet 16 against Marquette on Friday. Let's take a look at what Marquette's done this year.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things just a little bit further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check all of these out today at nissanusa.com. Happy Thursday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We're going to take a look at what Marquette has done throughout this college basketball season. Very tough matchup for NC State on Friday in the Sweet 16 down in Dallas. Now, Marquette obviously plays in the Big East. They finished second in the Big East in the regular season behind UConn. They were also runner-up in the Big East Conference tournament, losing to UConn. And Marquette has seen actually several teams in the Sweet 16. They played some quality competition this year, and they played a lot of these teams pretty close as well. They are a very good team. They got some solid wins, maybe some losses that NC State can take a look into. But Kenton, we're going to take a peek at these. Here we go.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for NC State to do more than anything else would be to take a look at those wins, because when I tell you these guys are absolute pick and roll merchants, I am not kidding.
Yeah, we're going to get into more of the finer details on Friday's show before they tip off down in Dallas. Marquette has a lot to handle. You'll probably notice that through some of these scores that we'll read to you here. So sorting through the early months of Marquette's schedule, first couple games that obviously jump immediately out to you, they played Illinois on November the 14th. They defeated Illinois by 7 points. They played UCLA, Kansas, and Purdue in the subsequent 3 games. That is quite an early season gauntlet for Marquette. And guess what? They won 3 out of the 4. They defeated UCLA, they defeated Kansas, and they only lost to Purdue by 3 points. Now, this is early in the season, so the Marquette that we're going to see on Friday is not necessarily the same Marquette that was putting up these scores in November. But Kenton, what do you take from some of these big name games here in November?
They planned their work and they worked their plan at a great clip to start the year. This was a team that looked like and showed not only they could play with anybody, they could beat anybody. They showed up and showed out in a big time way. You know, the Maui Invitational is one of the more prestigious in terms of all of the invitational and you know, in-season tournaments and whatnot that you see in college basketball. Whenever you see that Maui Invitational, you know it's going to be on ESPN. You know it's going to be prime time. You know it's going to be a big time, or you're going to see some big-time matchups in high-level basketball. And this one did not disappoint, with Marquette coming up as the runner-ups in this one to Purdue.
Following month, they played Wisconsin, Texas, and then Creighton there at the end of December. That's 3 more teams that are in the dance. They actually lost to Wisconsin, surprisingly, by a score of 75-64. They turned around and beat Texas in a bit of a Shaka Smart revenge game. And then at the end of the month of December, they defeated Creighton in a ranked matchup by 5 points. Now, obviously, in the Big East, they saw Creighton twice. They saw UConn actually 3 times. As we continue to move here through the rest of the Big East schedule, they struggled early. They dropped a couple games to Seton Hall, to Butler, struggled with St. John's, played close games with Villanova, but then they really started to get hot there at the end of January and into February. They went on an 8-game win streak before they ran into the buzzsaw that is UConn, and UConn absolutely dismantled them when they met for the first time in mid-February. But, I mean, UConn's doing that to everybody, so maybe you take that with a grain of salt. But something else we noticed here, Marquette's been ranked not just in the top 10, but within the top 5 a lot of this year. They are the real deal. They are every bit of a top 5 team. And then as you move into the back half of their schedule, end of February and getting into March, they took a couple on the chin before they got into conference play. They dropped one to Creighton, dropped their second one to UConn before beating Xavier and then getting into the Big East tournament where they advanced to the final and then yet again ran into the buzzsaw that is UConn. They say it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but UConn did not struggle against Marquette. Marquette's a very good team. 27-9, as I mentioned, second in the Big East, second in the Big East Conference Championship. The Big East kind of gets a weird reputation. It's not exactly the Big East. It's not your daddy's Big East. It's not the Big East that it was in, the late 2000s, early 2010s. But obviously Villanova's in there, Xavier's in there, Butler's in there, and then you have the rise to prominence that we're seeing from UConn. They're playing dogfights seemingly every night in the Big East. So this is a seasoned team. They've obviously learned how to win if they won at this rate in a conference like that. And now they got to play us. NC State's feeling a bit like a team of destiny right now, but Marquette is, I'd say, the hardest team that we have had to go up against within this run, and that includes UNC. I think Marquette is a much harder matchup for NC State than even UNC is.
Yeah, I say it a lot. Fighters don't make fights, styles make fights. And like you said, this isn't your dad's Big East. Alonzo Mourning ain't walking through that door. Patrick Ewing ain't walking through that door. Chris Mullen ain't walking through that door. But this is still a very, very quality conference in terms of the basketball they play. And Marquette has shown that they are among the elites in a very elite conference. So I'll give them their respect in that regard. And, you talk about the style making a fight and the problems that they present. Our bigs are going to have to. They're going to have. I am not saying this is like it'd be nice if they did. It is imperative. It is imperative that we're able to stop one of the oldest plays in the book, the old pick and roll, because that is one of the things that Marquette does at a higher level and higher frequency than nearly anyone else in the nation. If you cannot stop that action from Marquette, they will run it every night. You ever played that friend in Madden that knows that one play, right? Oh, yeah, when he gets in that power set and he runs that HB zone weak or that HB stretch, you're going to have problems all night long with it. Marquette's much in the same way. They keep it really simple. Shaka Smart's not the type of guy that's going to outthink himself and get too pretty with it. So the task is for NC State's bigs to be able to apply pressure to ball handlers but recover to the rollers, to make good decisions defensively to where they're not in positions where they're always chasing out of position, liable to get a foul and things along those lines.
We're going to look a little bit into finer details in Marquette, basically what to expect in tomorrow's episode. So make sure to tune into that. I think, like I mentioned, they have a lot of matchup difficulties for NC State to try and get a hang on. Their guard play is superior. They do a lot of inverted screening, and that's been the buzzword that I've seen a lot this week is inverted screening. We'll explain what that is tomorrow as well, but this is an exciting matchup. I still think NC State can win, but they're going to have to strain. They're going to have to strain maybe a little bit harder than they have at any other point during this run. So
yes, Marquette is not by any stretch of the imagination unbeatable. Let's not go there and say, hey, this team is there's nothing that NC State can do with this team. Even if we play our best game and they play their best game, there's nothing we can do. I'm not going to say that, but I will say if we come out and we have a sluggish starter, if we come out and we're not ready with defensive intensity, it's going to be, in the words of the Invisible Man Band, it's going to be an all-night thing for Marquette because it's going to be a real ugly day for us.
Up next, we're going to take a look at some early names that NC State has been linked to in the transfer portal. How soon we forget the transfer portal season is active. We have obviously bigger things to be focusing on right now, but in the background, NC State's been in contact with a couple players. We'll tell you who after a quick word from our sponsors. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys are able to take it to the next level. Your NC State Wolfpack are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us all with a powerful performance in their first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. Wins over Texas Tech and Oakland have set them up to play Marquette on Friday in the Sweet 16. They say win life, go Rogue, and that's exactly what the Wolfpack have done. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Second sponsor of the day is Bettor Together. Is your bracket already busted? Are you tired of the same old daily fantasy sports grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers, and then simply hope for the best? Or maybe even losing on the last leg of your pick'em entry? Introducing Bettor Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform, where teamwork triumphs talent and you can play with your friends instead of against them. You pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb the leaderboards together. So grab a friend and join the social DFS movement. Bettor Together offers a familiar experience of daily fantasy sports players, but with a social twist. You now play with a friend or teammate. You can show that synergy of working together while giving you a better chance at winning than just going at it alone. This also gives inexperienced players an immersive way to learn about daily fantasy sports, teaming up with and following the lead of experienced friends and teammates in a team context. So download Bettor Together today from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Middle portion of our Thursday show. Now wanted to start taking an early look at some transfer portal names that we've seen that NC State has been in contact with. So again, this is early. All of this is pretty much arbitrary at this point. We still don't know, outside of just LJ Thomas, who NC State might lose in this process. It's very fair to assume you might see players move on. You just don't know at this point, especially in the middle of a Sweet 16 run. That is the only thing that matters at the moment. But NC State, despite being in the middle of this run, they have reached out to a couple players of note. Two guards. I'll start with the guards before I get to the center. Two guards. One of them is from George Mason. He goes by the name of Keyshawn Hall. He's a 6'7" guard, averaged 16.6 points a game, 8 rebounds, and about an assist and a half. This came on 47% shooting, 35% shooting from 3. The second guard of our interest that NC State has been in contact with is BJ Freeman. Now, we saw NC State take a local kid approach and trying to convince him to come back home and play for the Wolfpack. BJ Freeman is a guard from Selma, North Carolina, but he's been playing his college ball out in Milwaukee. He's a 6'6" guard, averaged 21.1 points a game. Hello. And 6.6 rebounds on 42% shooting and 35% shooting from 3. DJ Horn will be moving on from the program due to graduation. What do you think about the prospects of either BJ Freeman or Keyshawn Hall to be his potential replacement?
Hey, man, get Freeman about that Horizon League. You know, with all due respect, again, I gave all the respect to Oakland and all that last game and whatnot. Get him up out that Horizon League, okay? Bring that young man home. He has seen what hometown guys can do when they come back to Raleigh. He has seen what it looks like, because I'm going to tell you something, nobody else. And when I say nobody else, I mean nobody else. Does it mean more to have these homegrown talents doing all these amazing things? Bring them on back. But I think that those two particular in the backcourt are really, let's just be honest, right? Hall is a front court guy, especially in Keats' system. Yeah. He's going to be a front court guy. He's just going to be a stretch big or a stretch wing that, you know, kind of spaces out the offense and gives us more options. And I'll tell you what, both of them would be immensely valuable. First of all, you can never overestimate the value of somebody who spaces the floor and creates more driving lanes and creates more opportunities for your guys who are attacking downhill, your bigs in the post. Because if you decide to sag off him, you know, hand down, man down. That is, go ahead and deposit 3 in the bank. And so it's a very serious situation where when you have those two types of guys on your team, they both bring something dynamic. Obviously, the young man for Selma, a fantastic scorer, can get it done all kinds of ways at all 3 levels.
I find BJ Freeman extremely interesting, especially because NC State just played another team from that Horizon League like you talked about. The Horizon League, they play basketball too. They just took it overtime. Jack Golke, we were worried about him lighting us up. He played very small college basketball before getting to Oakland even then. So the Horizon League, they can play some basketball. And they also tell you that numbers do not lie. If BJ Freeman's putting up 21, I'm sure he'd have no problem scoring a couple buckets here in the red and white. So I would love to see Freeman become a priority for Kevin Keatts in the NC State Wolfpack. Again, hopefully you can keep pieces like a Jaden Taylor here. You can keep pieces coming to state like a Trey Parker and Paul McNeil, obviously coming in, just a freshman, but a lot of buzz around him as well. I think Freeman could be a very interesting get for NC State to consider. And now the center. This is a center from Rutgers, Clifford Omoruyi, 6'11", averaged 10.4 points a game, 8.3 rebounds a game, 51% field goal shooting, 93 blocks this year, a rim defender. He would fit very nicely into this front court that Kevin Keatts has developed this year.
When's the last time Kevin Keatts had a really good rim defender that held up for an entire year?
The entire year, that's a caveat there. I instantly went Manny Bates, but know.
But that's my point. And those teams with Manny Bates, when he was healthy, were those teams not lethal? Were those teams not like, hey, even if you do blow by somebody, Manny's at the rim, he's waiting on you. I'm telling you right now, what this young man could mean to this team, I say it a lot in the NBA, but even more so for college basketball, where the shooters are a little less skilled and the shooting percentages drop quite a bit from the NBA. If you can protect and defend the rim efficiently, you have the opportunity to win each and every game you play. You will never be out of the game because you can make sure that a majority of a team's shots, a majority of their gimmies are not so much a gimme. And him and Mo Diarra in that front court, Alexa, play deads because some shooters are in trouble. They are in trouble when they try to get to the rim. Those brothers are going to be having the type of headache you can't get rid of with a stand back, with a Motrin, with an ibuprofen, with whatever drug you may need. You're going to need something stronger because I'm telling you, it is just going to be very annoying to think that you're going up strong and see it swatted to the fifth row by one of these two.
Assuming that Diarra and Middlebrooks both retain here in Raleigh, adding Omoruyi, again, 6'11", you'd have to score amongst the trees to get through the paint to score on NC State. So I think he's a very interesting name to consider as well. He's going to be getting some high interest from probably teams like Kentucky. You know the names that he'll probably be hearing from. So to see NC State in potentially the mix for him, I think that one could be one to watch. Of course, as we see more names come across our desk, we'll be sure to share them on here. We'll tell you what we think about it, but we also want to hear what you think about it. If you've seen some names floating around in the transfer portal, let us know in the comments. Tell us who you think NC State should begin to pursue here as portal season really ramps up here in probably a couple days. Coming up next, we're going to talk about NCAA scheduling and how NC State, yet again, gets the short end of the stick. After a quick word from our sponsor. Our third sponsor of the day is Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV. Whether it's the opening weekend for MLB, which begins today, or the NCAA college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. It actually includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and even cooking videos. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, well, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Last couple of minutes here on Thursday. Hold on to your chairs here. The NCAA is involved with NC State, and NC State fans are none too pleased. This, of course, is in regards to the recent scheduling announcement for the Sweet 16s. NC State men's team plays on Friday in Dallas, 7:09 Eastern time against Marquette. The women's team also plays on Friday at 7:30 Eastern time against Stanford. Who in this scheduling department for this tournament decided that this would be a good idea? This is also very easily avoided, so you can chalk it up to pure laziness as well. I don't know what it is with NC State and the NCAA. NC State stuff we know has ended, but NC State stuff with the NCAA is very much still ongoing. There is still, for some reason, beef here. This is tough for Wolfpack fans. We care so deeply about both of these teams making a run in this tournament. Those that can dual screen obviously will, but it takes away from the overall experience, giving all of your attention to one game at a time. And that sucks. This is a big deal for NC State to have two teams in the Sweet 16, and now we don't even get to like fully enjoy it on Friday.
Hey, Grayson, just out of curiosity, Duke men and women are also in it, and UConn's men and women are also in it, and Gonzaga's men and women are both in the Sweet 16. Can you tell me who else has an overlap of 30 minutes or less?
I'll give you one guess. It's only us.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that so peculiar? What do we say of coincidence, Grayson? The universe is rarely so lazy. I think that it's embarrassing, honestly. Like, what does state have to do? Why does the NCAA keep? What happened? What you ran Valvano out of town after he took that championship from Fox Slammer Jab. You ran him out of town. He's gone. God rest his soul. He's gone. You made sure that Avon didn't get his first national championship in Omaha. It's done. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It is so ridiculous at this point. It is getting so just blatant and terrible in terms of why is it that every single time the NCAA has the slightest opportunity to hand NC State the short end of the stick, it always happens. What was it about these two matchups that you said, we can't move them? We can't move them. It's so interesting when people call NC State folks black helicopter people, and then stuff like this happens.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, NC State, they're just so paranoid. They just think everybody's out to get them. Y'all don't think it's odd that we're the only team? There are 4. So in both Sweet 16s, there are 32 teams, right? 8 of those teams all belong to the same 4 schools. Only one of those groupings got overlapping times. It's terrible. It's terrible, man. That's all I got to say about it at this point.
If there's a short end of the stick to be had, NC State's going to have that every single time.
And not just NC State's going to have it. The NCAA is going to find a way to force feed it to state. Even if it doesn't fit, even if it doesn't match, even if it hurts us, even if it hurts the NCAA's product. Talking about growing the women's game and getting other teams involved in terms of, hey, we don't need to put this team, we don't need to put UConn in Connecticut. They're the top 2 seed, which means they should be the first ones out in another region, because the actual 1 seed was supposed to be in UConn that year, or in Bridgeport. Isn't it interesting how, again, NC State does what it's supposed to do? Because some of these, sure, I'll give you the World Series thing. I'll give you a few of these things and say, whatever. But some of these things, you do what you're supposed to do, and the NCAA still says, hey, we'll find a way.
Sometimes it ain't crying wolf. Sometimes the wolf is getting screwed. And that is what we somehow keep finding to be the case with NC State and the NCAA. So I do think it's a little bit funny that this boneheaded decision, in a roundabout way, it will cost the NCAA a little bit of money, because you're going to affect your own viewership. Whereas if these games were separated by 2 hours, you would have full undivided support of NC State on both of these games. Now you're putting maybe some folks in a position where they do have to pick one or the other. And so in doing so, you're affecting your own bottom line. It just really feels like the slightest bit of revision could have had this avoided. And yet, here we are. Are we surprised? Not exactly. Are we still frustrated? Absolutely. Nonetheless, we're going to have to find a way to support both of our teams as rapidly as we can at the same time on Friday. That'll do it for us here on Thursday. Be sure to tune into our Friday episode for the finer details of Marquette and what to expect. But until then, we will see you all tomorrow. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. And if you have not already, mash that subscribe button. Until tomorrow, go Pack.
Go Pack.